church begins. Jesus' resurrection is the catalyst for the mission of the church, beginning with the disciples and down throughout history. Indeed, the growth and spread of the church is a proof of the historical fact of Jesus' physical resurrection or rising from the dead. And having been raised from the dead, Jesus' mission to earth is coming to an end, and shortly he will be returning to the right hand of the Father. Before he does so, though, he has some more words to say to his disciples. The first book I wrote, Theophilus, concerned all that Jesus began both to do and to teach until the day in which he was received up, after he had given commandment through the Holy Spirit to the apostles whom he had chosen. To these he also showed himself alive after he suffered, by many proofs, appearing to them over a period of 40 days, and speaking about God's kingdom. Being assembled together with them, he commanded them, "Don't depart from Jerusalem, but wait for the promise of the Father which you heard from me. For John indeed baptized in water, but you will be baptized in the Holy Spirit not many days from now." Therefore, when they had come together, they asked him, "Lord, are you now restoring the kingdom to Israel?" He said to them, "It isn't for you to know times or seasons which the Father has set within his own authority, but you will receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you. You will be witnesses to me in Jerusalem, in all Judea and Samaria, and to the uttermost parts of the earth." When he had said these things, as they were looking, he was taken up, and a cloud received him out of their sight. While they were looking steadfastly into the sky as he went, behold, 2 men stood by them in white clothing, who also said, "You men of Galilee, why do you stand looking into the sky? This Jesus who was received up from you into the sky will come back in the same way as you saw him going into the sky." Then they returned to Jerusalem from the mountain called Olivet, which is near Jerusalem, a Sabbath day's journey away. Throughout the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus' authority had been a major theme. And where Matthew recorded Jesus doing miracles, this was to highlight Jesus' authority in action, and not just merely in words. The Gospel of Matthew records Jesus' authority to forgive sins, and he imparted authority to his disciples for a short time when they went on a mission in Matthew chapter 10. And in Matthew 28, Jesus has authority over all things, all people, all circumstances and happenings. Jesus has authority over all spiritual beings, whether angels or demons. Jesus Christ has authority over all nations, governments and rulers. Jesus Christ has authority over all earthly and spiritual authorities. Jesus has the authority. That's we can gather from the Gospel of Matthew, and particularly Matthew 28, verses 18 to 20. And this authority means regardless of whatever Christian disciple faces, Jesus is in control. Therefore, we can obey him without fear of retribution from those who would seek to harm us. We can obey him regardless of the circumstances we find ourselves in. It is a great comfort to know that he is in control of everything. And through his death on the cross and his rising from the dead, Jesus has conquered all enemies. Now I know that people sometimes confuse authority with authoritarian. An authoritarian means severe, rigidity, and a dictator, and none of these can apply to Jesus Christ. The disciples had been given a free will, as we have, but as his disciples, we should choose to exercise our free will to obey him and live a life worthy of him. Certainly that was his message to his disciples in the New Testament. And as the Christian depends on Jesus' authority, the Christian disciple gains wisdom, guidance, and power. And Mark 16 verse 14 to 19, Luke 24, 50 to 51, In Acts chapter 1 verse 1 to 12, we read about Jesus physically ascending into the heavens. He is returning, as he said he would do, to the right hand of the Father. And during this last discussion with Jesus, the disciples were still expecting him to lead a political revolution against the Romans. Acts 1 verse 6. And despite all Jesus had said to them in the previous 3 years, they still did not understand that Jesus had come to lead a spiritual kingdom and not a political kingdom. Hence he tells them to go back to Jerusalem, wait for the Holy Spirit, and then go tell others this good news about him. And even after Jesus had vanished into the clouds, the disciples still gathered around, looking in the sky, waiting for him to return. So 2 angels came and said, "You men of Galilee, why do you stand looking into the sky? This Jesus who was received up from you into the sky will come back in the same way as you saw him going into the sky." Acts 1 verse 11. And from there the disciples returned to Jerusalem and waited. They didn't have to wait long, 10 days, until the Holy Spirit came, filled them, baptized them, and started living with them.